Hey YouTube, Brian, LCS, thanks for stopping by the channel and this video, the Amazing Spider-Man number 26 review. So we're going to get into spoilers. Unless you've been living under a rock, you probably have heard something about this issue. Marvel even announced some news about the storyline about 2 weeks ago. So let's take a look at the creative team. You have Zeb Wells writing and John Romita Jr. on the art. And here is the overall synopsis. Give you a second to take a look at that. So let's jump in. So we open up with a flashback from 9 months ago, and we have Kamala Khan, Miss Marvel, here on an interview for an Oscorp position. You know, the interviewer here is saying, you know, you're really not qualified, but she's saying, look, I'm not going to take no for an answer. And she ultimately, gets hired to work in the lab, Oscorp. And then we cut to present day. We have the emissary, Rabin, here back on Earth, and he is after MJ. He's trying to find MJ because if he sacrifices her, he will become a god. And so he is doing whatever he can to, get at her and become a god and destroy Earth. That is his kind of master plan. And we see Gold Goblin come in, we see Miss Marvel, and so they're coming to aid in the fight with the emissary. And we finally see him revealed. And, Peter, basically, Spider-Man is saying, look, you're not taking my city. We see Rabin kind of transform here and almost look even more demonic. And so he starts going at Spider-Man and MJ, and we see Gold Goblin swoop in, Miss Marvel get her licks in, and Rabin continues to come at them. And he reveals that he's got a backup plan. He's got some help here with him. And so we see a big robot Kanju show up in Central Park here and looking to do some damage to the city. Spider-Man asked Norman to go deal with the big baddie in the Central Park. And again, Rabin is just focused on Mary Jane, sacrificing her so that he can become a god. And, Mary Jane is not backing down. But he's actually trying to, kind of get at her a little bit, saying, do you know where Paul comes from? And so we see this flashback here, and it's revealed through all of this that Paul is actually Rabin's son. He's not from Earth. He's from this interdimension where Rabin has been. And we see that Mary Jane kind of still, Peter is not happy with the fact that Paul is Rabin's son, but Mary Jane kind of sticks by him, in this flashback. Then we cut back to present day, and again we see now Rabin realizes that the Paul reveal didn't have that big of an effect, and so he reveals something else, that there were other bindings that he put in place. And we see him kind of cast a spell, and we see that the children disappear. The two children that Mary Jane and Paul found were basically a ploy by Rabin. And so they're gone. They disappear. And then now we cut back to, the battle here, and Mary Jane is now pissed off when she realizes that he has potentially done something to the kids, and she's basically saying, look, you're mine, I'm going to kill you. And we see her use some of her powers and send, Rabin flying here, and, Peter's basically telling her, look, you need to kind of back off. If he sacrifices you, this is going to be bad for Earth, and so we really need to protect you. And she's just so upset the fact that something has happened to the kids. And we see the Fantastic Four come in, and we see Ben Grimm kind of still griping with Spider-Man a little bit with some of the past events. And Spider-Man apologizes, and Reed Richards basically says, look, you've been a good friend for many years, and that's, we're here to help. That's really all that matters. They're trying to figure out, how to deal with all of this. Spider-Man asked the Fantastic Four to help Gold Goblin with this the big monster in the park, while Peter and Miss Marvel deal with MJ and Raven. And so we see, Raven, as Mary Jane kind of charges up her powers, Raven grabs a hold of her, but we see Miss Marvel step in and stop him. And again, there's this conversation about, Mary Jane really needs to be safe, because if Raven sacrifices her, bad things are going to happen. And so then we cut to the Central Park here. We've got the Gold Goblin, we've got Ben Grimm, the Thing, and Human Torch dealing with this big creation that Raven brought upon Central Park. And now we cut back to Peter, the fight between Peter and Raven, and he's going at him. He's hitting him with I think it's a street sign or a parking meter. He's kind of going at him, and Miss Marvel is getting Mary Jane, out of harm's way. And as Peter tries to deliver another blow here, Raven kind of teleports and he's gone. And so Spider-Man's first instinct is, Mary Jane, got to get to Mary Jane. And then we cut back to the battle with the Fantastic Four and the Gold Goblin. And Reed Richards comes up with a plan that if they imprint one of the symbols on this, the big monster here, that it will destroy him. And Reed, uses his hands to create the symbol to show Johnny what is needed. And Johnny, the Human Torch, goes in and imprints that symbol on top of the monster's head here. And then, boom, we see him, kind of disappear. And we see now Raven is now teleported himself to where MJ and Miss Marvel are. And Miss Marvel is doing her best to defend as Spider-Man is swinging to try to get there to assist. And we see Miss Marvel tell MJ, look, run, I'll go deal with Raven. Again, we cut back to the Fantastic Four. Now they're kind of coming in to aid with Raven now that they've defeated the big monster. And then we see Raven catches up with Mary Jane, and we see this big sound, and assuming that she has been stabbed. And then we actually see it. He drives his blade into MJ, and there's this big kind of burst of energy. And then Spider-Man's, kind of swoops in and kicks him. And, he's obviously concerned about MJ. And we see Raven trying to, transform himself into a god. And we see these word bubbles here that say desecration, a liar. So basically, something has not gone right here with this sacrifice. And we see Raven basically getting hit with, this energy. And then all of a sudden, he just basically dissolves. His skeleton, we just have a skeleton form, and he is gone. And then we see, Peter attending to Mary Jane. But then we see Mary Jane walk in with the Fantastic Four and the Gold Goblin. And then we cut to, it's revealed that it's Miss Marvel who's been actually stabbed, and that she made herself look like Mary Jane to trick Raven into this. But it's not looking good for her. And then we see the scene where Peter Parker, Spider-Man, is kind of holding her, and she's not feeling well. And ultimately, she dies. And so we kind of see all the different characters who've been involved. And now we see Paul walk in, and MJ questions Paul about the whereabouts of the children. And, he reveals that the children didn't make it. And then here's the final page where Peter is embracing Miss Marvel, who has now passed away. And the Fantastic Four, Paul, Gold Goblin, Mary Jane are all kind of mourning her death. And that's where we end this issue. And we'll take a look. There's some, I guess, a one-shot that'll be available in the near future. Kind of a story about Miss Marvel and her death. And then a preview of Amazing Spider-Man number 27, where we look like we kind of get back to normal. We have Doc Ock, Black Cat, and Spider-Man. So we'll see where that goes. Now, overall, this was okay. I mean, there were some pieces that helped wrap up the storyline, but overall, it really wasn't that good. And the reason why I say that is that Miss Marvel is not a Spider-Man character. Yeah, she's an overall Marvel character, but in this whole run of 26 books, she has maybe been in 6, 7, 8 pages. So very little impact as a reader for me of Spider-Man and a fan of Spider-Man to have her death occur in this book, because I don't really care about her. If it was more, if it was one of the main, if it was MJ or Black Cat or somebody that was more entwined with the Spider-Man story, then I think it would have had greater impact. Since she was not really a big part of this storyline, it really kind of falls flat for me. So I don't know. I don't think she'll stay dead. I think we're going to see something. There's some theories out there of what's going to happen, but we'll see what happens. But and then the reveal about Paul being Emissary's son. Now I get the feeling that we haven't seen obviously the last of Paul. He's in a relationship with MJ, but I think we might see that play out in the future. Maybe where that goes wrong, and maybe he becomes evil, or I don't know. I just think that is a key part in Paul's story, and the fact that he's not from Earth, that something's going to happen. We haven't seen the last of that storyline. I doubt that MJ and Paul are going to live happily ever after. So we'll see what happens. And they cleaned up the fact of the children, right? That was kind of a we revealed last issue that they weren't Mary Jane's children. She didn't give birth to them. So now there's this kind of cleanup of that where they are gone now, and we're not dealing with this instant family that MJ basically happened for her. So and overall, John Romita Jr.'s art is very inconsistent for me. I've said that before. There are some panels that I like. There are others that I really don't. And there's some panels that are really kind of distracting. When reading this book the first time, I actually had to do a double take on this one panel here, because I wasn't sure who the character was, but it's Norman Osborn. But just the way it was drawn, it just was a little distracting for me. So I'm not a fan of some of his panels and some of his shading that he uses with all these little lines. It's a takeaway for me when I read the book. But overall, thinking about my 5 webhead review system for this book, I'm going to go with a 2. This was, like I said, it did wrap up some things, so we got some closure on some of the storyline. But overall, I think that just the execution of it and the death of a character that really wasn't important to this entire story arc, like I said, it falls flat. So let me know what you think of the execution of the story, the impact of Miss Marvel's death. Was it the right place for it in an ASM book? So that's all I got for you this week. Thanks for watching.